Hello, hello.
Oh. What's going on, everybody?
Yo. How we doing? Am I choppy? Am I choppy right now?
You're pretty good.
Smooth.
It'll often seem like you're choppy, but like it's good to other people. And if you have any like unnecessary like apps or windows open, that does help Goldcast quite a bit. I've learned.
Let me shut some things
What's
down.
up, everybody?
Let me shut some things down.
Yeah, go for it. We're gonna take a minute or two to hang out, get folks get their as Tom says, refresh their water, get situated, and we'll get going in a minute here.
I've just hit the low of the low, which is I didn't really have time to boil the water. So I have cold instant coffee. So if you see me grimace, it's not because of what you said, KD. Like I'm not judging what you say. It's because that's what I'm drinking.
See, you made it a bigger deal than it needed to be. Now I totally think that's why you'll be making the face, is you disagreed with me, and now you just preemptively used it an excuse for it. So that, my friends, is called 8-miling, or a preemptive objection handle. Well played, Tom.
8-miling. I like the reference.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of my favorite gifts, man. One of my favorite gifts one of my teams got me is because I teach 8-miling to my team. They photoshopped me onto the 8-mile stage, and then all of these people are my reps and managers. So they photoshopped
That's awesome.
into the crowd. So this is one. I don't know how they found the photo of me, whatever, but it's one of my favorite gifts.
I love that. That's good. That's like what was his name? The FBI negotiator. I always forget his name. Chris Voss. He always did the thing. He was like, I'm gonna ask you a question that you're not gonna like and probably make you think I don't know what I'm talking about. And it's like guard all the way down. Now you can say whatever you want. All right, we've had warm up from cold water, cold coffee, 8-mile, and Chris Voss. I think we should probably hit the go button. So for folks that are here, welcome. If you want to give it a practice run over in the chat, you'll want to click the chat button, and you can go ahead and drop in where you're calling from. Just to make sure it works, we'll all say what's up. Tom, you're in Seattle, right?
Nearly. Portland. We see the money fly from the Bay to Seattle in airplanes with all the money, and we say, please stop here in Portland, but they don't. So I'm here instead.
Which is Portland, right? Did I get that right?
Portland.
Portland, nice. Okay.
Southeast
I'm over the Bay
Portland,
Area, East Bay. You got Atlanta, San Francisco, LA, Michigan, Minnesota. This really tests how well I know the state codes. But anyway, thank you everybody for joining today. We are here to talk about effective buyer collaboration, how to convert and close more deals, faster in Q4. So if that's what you're looking for, you're in the right spot. Real quick on the speakers, in case you don't know, we've got Kevin Katie Dorsey, SVP of Sales at Bench. I would argue legend in the B2B sales game. I want to say tech, but I think you're bigger than that. I think your B2B sales game. Let me know if that's too small of a pool, Katie. Maybe there's a bigger one I should give you credit for. But I've been following Katie for a long time. Grateful I get to spend time and learn from him. Katie, anything else you want to add to the intro or say to the folks?
Nah, my man, I'm ready. Let's do this.
He's game time. He's like, let the announcers stop introducing players. I want the whistle. We got Tom Williams, who's head of Align at Clari. He has arguably top 3 best accent at Clari. And Tom, anything you want to add about yourself?
I think about how to help customers a lot, and I'm in the luxurious position where I don't have a quota, but I do talk to customers. So I think I probably have the best job in town.
That's a good job. As you can tell, the guy holding the microphone, getting these folks ready. I'm Devin Reed, head of content here. I'm your moderator, and I'm a salesperson turned marketer. So you might hear a few tidbits from me as well. I've carried a bag, done some damage, if I may say. And so I'm excited for the conversation. I get to learn a lot. And here's real quick what we're going to cover. Why building buyer trust is critical. My favorite, why most teams don't do this thing, or the mistakes that they're making. We're going to cover that. Then we're going to flip it and go, okay, what are some proven strategies we can use for better buyer collaboration? And we will have live Q&A at the very end. And so if you see where you click chat, there's also will be Q&A. So drop questions there. I'll do my best to moderate, but that's where the questions are going to go. And our producer, Bruce, will highlight the most upvoted ones, and we will cover those at the end. Finally, the most common question as a seller is, can you see my screen? When you're hosting a webinar, is this going to be recorded? And I promise you, it is going to be recorded. You'll get the recording tomorrow. And if for some reason you can't see the screen, you let us know in the chat, but you should be good to go. All right, gents, I know you're ready, but I got to do the housekeeping stuff. So let's talk a little bit about why now. Why now? Q4 is not just the most wonderful time of year, it's the most important time of year. KD, you're leading a team right now. What's maybe kind of like, not the rah-rah message, but what's the like kind of truth bombs you're telling your team, right? Like, hey, get them in the mindset of Q4. Why is right now so important?
Mm-hmm. Well, because we know if we don't do it now, the odds go down significantly, right? Because also this is a great time for people to buy as well as they wrap up their year, as they have budgets, as they move things around to create budget for next year. But really, the way that I lead my teams, and you could talk to people about it, I just said this to someone, my stress levels and energy levels almost mismatches my teams because I'm way more like hyped up and like kind of at the start of quarters. End of quarters, I already know where we're going to land and fall. And so I'm already kind of moving forward. So now it's just about executing the plays, but it's staying consistent because we take our foot off the gas in Q4. That actually impacts us in Q1 as well. So that's really how I look at it and approach it.
It's interesting. I would like have to experience that. I feel like as a seller, my leaders were always the more stressed and more amped than I was, which always elevated me because I'm like, look, the stakes are already high. It's holiday season. It's tough to get people. Budgets are tight, and then you got like a manager like shaking you through the screen a little bit. So I'm sure your team.
I'm the opposite, and it catches people off guard because they're starting a quarter kind of like, okay, let's get going, and that's when I'm most like, no, we need to be on it. We got to be hitting this. We got to be doing that, and they're trying to ease into the quarter, so it mismatches sometimes. I got to work with it.
Well, you said something too. You said, if it's not now, the odds drop considerably. And we've done some research about this at Clari. So we have Clari Labs. And so I think it was over a couple hundred companies and saw that win rates drop 66% when a deal slips into the next quarter. I'm sure we've all experienced that. It probably feels like more, at least for me. I always know like when a good deal slips, it's like something bad always happens. And so that's why we wanted to focus on this right now. It's not just our gut. There's some serious data showing this. And then Tom, do you want, you're a professional. You're a known revenue leak assessor, finder, fixer. This is bigger than just Q4 though.
Yeah, well, so there's two ideas. One is Q4 is important because who really cares if it slips from 3 to 4? No one's really going to mind that much. But when it slips from this fiscal into the next fiscal, then the board actually does take notice and there's no excuses. The thing that kills me about slip is when it slips, you don't kind of remember that you robbed Peter to pay Paul, and you end up thinking, oh, well, this quarter where I have this deals that have come in, you don't now do better than you did before. So when deals slip, you actually end up losing money all over the place because you don't then double up in the subsequent month. What really, really kills me, though, is how much slip is because you just made a mistake. So every time there's a signature on a Friday night, that's because you probably could have done that a week earlier, or you forgot something, or they didn't know something on their side that, oh, geez, I had to get Billy Bob to sign it, or there was just some last minute little niggle that gets in the way. And so it's your fault that it slips. If it's their fault, whatever, you can't help it. But when it's your fault, that is the worst.
And you had a conversation about this. We were talking about what does effective buyer collaboration look like, right? It can make or break the deals. That's why we're all here. But you had a conversation, I think, with some Clari reps this morning.
Yeah, we had 50 people on the call, and we were just doing not about the software, but about just better collaborative selling in general. And we asked them just to use one of those word cloud apps to put, why do you do collaborative selling? The two that really caught my eye was reducing risk, not just for them, but also for the customer. And then accountability came up a lot. And again, not just for the customer, but for themselves and for the other people on the sales team. Because at the end of the day, it's the rep who gets blamed. But when you want to blame your SE for not doing something, if it's all in black and white and it's a lot clearer who's supposed to do what, then there's going to be fewer of those mistakes. So collaborative on both buying team and selling team, and making sure that everybody's working towards the same goal.
I was both sort of surprised, but I guess like relieved that collaboration was the big word that jumped up in the middle. I was like, it's like sometimes it's good to be right on the nose and just like, okay, great. But I agree with accountability. I feel like that's the next thing. Like if you're going to collaborate with someone successfully toward a mutual end goal, there has to be accountability and accountability on both sides, which I always love how, Katie, I know you'll get into it. How do you do that with prospects?
It's a really good sign of disqualification. If they're not willing to be held accountable, then they're probably not a good bet. And so I really like putting something on the seller, on the buyer pretty early on, just to see if they'll do it. Otherwise, are they just kicking the tires or using me as a comparative price to the guy they really want to spend with? If they have a mission or something that they have to do, then I feel a lot better about asking my folks to do work as well.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into we have the first poll. So folks, go over to the poll tab. We'll push this one live. Curious, how would you rate your team's current collaboration with buyers? Excellent, good, fair, poor. And in the meantime, while we get that.
While we do that, go ahead, I'm curious. How do y'all define accountability for the buyer? I'm just curious. Like I see that word and we're talking about like, holding a buyer accountable. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is I ask for an explicit thing, like a meeting with somebody is the easiest bar to meet. And oftentimes on a meeting, they'll say, yeah, sure, no problem. And then it might take 2 or 3 prompts from me to actually get them to do it. So in my mind, I'm judging whether or not in this early stage is indicative of, are they going to help me later on in the deal when their help becomes not just a nice to have, but crucial. So really it's that in engineering, we have a say-do ratio. We said we're going to do it. Did we actually do it? And I have a little secret counter of everybody in my entire life where I judge their say-do ratio. And I do the same thing for buyers. The minute I meet them, I'm like, is this person with me or not? And it's fine if they're not. I just don't want to be surprised about it later on. I need to know what their accountability level is.
Mine is maybe more, I when I say simple, I just mean like more definitive. Where I think of it, Katie, is like, did you do what you said you were going to do? And did I do what I said I was going to do? And then is the other person, for lack of not wanting to use the word in the definition, is like, are you holding me, are there consequences? Is there a so what? Ked, you told me you would do this. That didn't happen. And now as a result, ... whatever that is. I'm also raising 2 toddlers right now. So I'm big in this like, so what consequence phase. So it's a little bit easier in that context. But I think at the end of the day, it's like you get steamrolled as a rep if you, let buyers not continue to not do what they say they're going to do. And then you just kind of start to get happier because like, yeah, they're not doing anything at all of what they said, but other things are still happening. They're still meeting with me. They're still talking to me. So it must mean something. So curious what you think. I'm sure you've got like I feel like you have like an axiom for this.
So I was just curious, right? Because, accountable is such an interesting word to hold someone else accountable in the buying process. Like I try to approach it, I would say maybe just from a little bit of a different angle of like, how do I make them want to do the thing that I'm asking them to do? Right. Because like accountable makes it sound not like adversarial per se, but like, I'm on this side, you're on this side. I'm going to hold you accountable to what you said you were going to do versus like, how do I make them want to do that thing? And then how do I make it easy for them to do that thing? Like as a buyer, I'm just trying to think like, how would a rep hold me accountable? Like what would that, how would an AE hold me accountable to do something? So just like
it's with my judging face. Because I'm trying to set up a personal relationship here so that we can trust each other. Because I'm going to go on a limb for you in a little bit. And I'm going to tell you stuff about your business that if you don't trust me, then we're going to be in trouble. But I can't trust you if you're not going to help me too. And you're going to get less from me, ultimately. I'm offering a whole bunch of free advice to you. And the accountability part is you're not going to get my sweet insights about whatever it is I'm selling if you don't do what you said you do.
All right. Oh, I'm ready for these sweet insights. Right.
I like it. The poll real quick for folks. No one voted excellent, but we got about 50% good, 50% fair, and a little bit in poor. So looks like everyone's in the right spot. That's what we're going to cover here. Let's talk about quickly, before we get into like what you should do, a little bit more like why most teams don't have better buyer collaboration? I have a feeling holding people accountable might be part of your answer, Katie, because I know that it's tough to do, right? Like I was 25 when I was in AE trying to sell to the Katies and Toms of the world. I had, barely knew what I was doing, let alone the self-awareness and business acumen to hold an executive accountable. So like, I think we all know that's tough, but what else, Katie, in your mind, as you coach teams, talk to teams, are like, this is kind of what's preventing them from even becoming more effective in collaborating?
So I mean, one, just in brand and theme is like, I really do think there's a lack of education and training on how to do it, right? Like we're about to go deeper on it, but like you'll get a lot of advice on LinkedIn around teams like you need to hold your buyers accountable, but they're never really taught how to do that, right? Given training around to do that, practicing that, setting up the scenarios to do that. So I think that's a big part of it is like there's a lack of education and training on how to properly do this, right? Because it's people love to talk about the sexy stuff, prospecting, the demo, disco, right? Yeah. Then you get into things like this that actually make or break the deal, right? I'll be honest, I haven't seen a whole lot of this type of content on LinkedIn. I haven't seen a whole lot of this being done like in trainings and stuff, right? And so like, I think there's a lack of education around it. I think there are mismatched in like incentives and priorities, right? Like if you think about it, a seller wants to move fast. Most buyers, unless there's a huge need, actually want to take their time to make sure they're making a good decision. So you already have some mismatch there of like how they want to approach that process, right? Like because out the gate, a seller is very convinced. The buyer needs to be convinced. Those are opposite sides there, right? And so I think that makes it really, really hard as well. And then, I guess I just said the word, it's hard, man. This is not easy, right? This is hard to do. To like, y'all know this is hard enough to hold your own kids accountable. It's hard enough to do that. Like now you're talking about a buyer. You're talking about someone you don't maybe have a super strong relationship and the 7.8 people that they have to work with. So it's hard. And so there's not a lot of tools out there to help with it. Like if you're trying to do this manually in a spreadsheet in your CRM, that makes it really hard to.
I think the solution is education, but I think the driving impetus is fear. So they're really afraid that if you go for the ask and you get rejected, then you've blown the whole thing. Where really, if you don't go for the ask, you've probably blown the whole thing. So I worry that people get nervous about making a big ask and rejection is insulting and they don't want to risk the path going in the wrong direction. So that's why they don't do it. Now, education would fix that. And then you'd realize that there are better and worse ways to ask for collaboration. You can't just say, give me all the stuff. You need to start with, you need to take the first step forward.
Mm-hmm.
Katie, I've heard you talk a lot about you got to get buyers to want it. I remember it was like I remember somewhere it was like, I finally get to answer how to create urgency or how to drive urgency. And it was like your turn to have a mic. I don't even know if I was on the webinar, like listening. And I remember being like getting the pen and pencil, like finally someone's going to teach me like the bullet, you doesn't think the bullet, but like the silver. And I remember you say, and you say it in other contexts too, is like, have you confirmed they want the thing?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds maybe obvious at surface level. You put it on a poster, it might be like a doctor's office, like confirm they want it. But it really does start there. I'm curious, like what are, anything you can share about kind of like how are you driving that with your teams right now? Right? Like as you're trying to close out Q4, I don't know if your Q4 ends this month or next, but like what do those like real conversations look like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the first question I ask every rep about a deal is what problem did they agree they have? Right, that's the first question. What problem did they agree they have? Because if they haven't agreed to a problem yet, they shouldn't even be in this forecast, in this commit, anything, if we don't actually know what problem they agreed to. And second, do they want it? And if the answer to that is yes, then why? Why do they want this? Right. And so too often, like I promise y'all, we got, 100 some people or so. Like I promise you got people in your pipeline right now that you don't actually know if they want what you have. You think they want it. They've said things like they like it. They've said things like, oh, that's great. You have never actually asked them. So, hey, do you want this? Do you believe this will solve XYZ problem for your company, your org, for you, right? So it's as simple as asking it, right? And we ask these before we do next steps with champions. We ask this before we ever get into pricing. We ask this before we send over a proposal, right? Hey, Tom, yeah, could you send over a proposal? I'd like to take a look at it. I mean, we could. Does that mean that you want this? Or are you still evaluating? right? We need to check on that. But want drives urgency more than anything else. You have to make sure that they want it. And too often, even with champions, and we'll get into it, we got champions out there that they like it. There's a whole lot of things, y'all, that we like. That doesn't mean we want and are willing to do the things necessary to get. I
really like writing it down. I'm a big fan of writing things down in general. One of my favorite strategies is on a screen share, and it does not matter what the technology is. Write down what you think they said, and ideally you got it wrong. And they're saying, no, that's not quite what I said. And now they're helping you fix it up, because not only then do you hear the words better, they get invested in it, and you have actual written confirmation of what they said they wanted. Because I think, Katie, you're right. People like things, and people are like, yeah, that's really cool. I can't remember the number of times I thought I had a deal back in the olden days when they said, yeah, it's really cool, and I heard sold. So the getting it written down and having them validate that you've heard it right lets you get a little bit sharper on the wanting bit, especially on when you've identified the urgent and important problem, like how important is it, and write it down and then just throw it on the screen and they say, is that right? And they will tell you if it's not, and that's fantastic. If they say it's perfect, then they're probably joshing you.
Yeah.
I wonder too, I don't know, not to go too deep into like American culture, but I feel like in American culture, we're not very confrontational, and it's easier just to say yes and move on versus like selling overseas. If you sell to like international accounts, sometimes it's like they're a little bit more blunt, a little more honest with you too in the buying process of what's right and what's not.
I think you're totally right, Evan. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay. I was kind of fishing for one. Like, dude, like Tom, come on, help me out here. I don't know, Katie, have you experienced that at all? Or you like pass?
Yeah, it goes both ways, to be honest, right? There's places where different cultures are more blunt. There's also different places where the same cultures are like yes nos, where it's a lot of yeses, but they don't mean a yes with it, and it's a yes, but it's a no. So it's just interpreting those things. That's just knowing the cultural nuances of just like, where do you have to do the double tap, or where do you have to do the double follow up to confirm, right? Versus, and that's why I love the secondary questions, right? It's like, yo, no, for sure, this will solve this problem. Great. How do you think it'll solve it for you? Like, I need you to tell me back, right? To Tom's point, your words. You should be telling me how this is going to impact your business, not me telling you how it will. And too often sellers aren't asking that, like, call it talk back or speech back type question.
I'm listening in my head the different countries, and I'm not going to listen because you suddenly become like faintly nationalist. But I know who the countries are who you cannot trust a yes. Yeah. That'll be a poll for.
We won't name names. We like all our countries. They all, as long as they sign on the dotted line. No. All right, let's move to the next part. So, curious for the folks listening, watching, which aspect of buyer collaboration do you find most challenging? So, you jump over to the poll, you'll see it there. Aligning buyer and seller perspectives, tech, creating scalable plans for collaboration. While that's happening, I want to move over to you, Tom and KD, on the two of the deep dives we have here, and the first one being how to collaborate to get a validated business case. How to get a validated business case. Which one of you gentlemen would like to go first?
I'm gonna give this one to Tom.
Yeah. So I gave away the first tip, which is throw it up on the screen. That's the number one thing you can do. I would say that for a truly valid business case, you need to have not just what the pain is, but also what the cost of them not doing it is, because they're going to be balancing, sure, I have this pain, and they have three choices. They can do nothing, they can fix it themselves, or they can go with a vendor. So you're actually competing with those first two before you even get some other company involved. And first of all, acknowledging that goes a really, really long way. So what I do is I'm like, we're going to find this problem. You can either ignore it, you can fix it yourself, or you can go with me. And my job is going to be to let you understand how expensive it will be if you try to do this by yourself, or if you ignore it. So no, I've spent like half my time, and I haven't even talked about my product yet, because they've got to answer for themselves that it's not just easier for them to, push it out till next quarter or try to fix it themselves. So that's the first step that I do. Make sure that they understand those prerequisites to even thinking about my solution.
Katie, anything you want to add, or? You can say no. Sometimes there's not anything to say, and it's like, that was good.
Yeah, I think that was good. Like, you know, like sometimes adding on only ruins a recipe. So no, I think that was solid.
I'm with you. I asked somebody a question the other day, and they said, I don't know enough about that to respond. And I was like, damn, I love that. That's fresh.
It took me a long time to realize that, like, you don't have to know everything. That took me, and you know, that's a good collaboration move too. Just go in and say, I don't know. People love to help other people. It's a, I don't know where it comes from, but deep in our humanity, when we were all fighting the saber-toothed tiger, I was like, I'm going to help you and you're going to help me. And we're all going to eat some saber-toothed tiger tonight. So I think there is a natural wanting to help when they think that we're all going to get a piece of that tiger together. So say you don't know, and they'll probably help you out.
I like it. I like it. All right, let's move on to the second deep dive, proven strategies for effective buyer collaboration. Katie, you had primed it earlier talking about champions, enabling the champion. I'm going to dish this one to you.
Like, it's amazing to me that we will have champions and then just absolutely just hang them out to dry and try to make them do our job. Like, all right, I've got this champion. Okay, so now champion, go sell your CFO for me. Go sell your VP of engineering for me. Go work with legal for me. Help with draft the, like, we put all of this on them. And it's like, think about how much coaching and training and process we get to try to do this. And we have a champion and we just hang them out there, right? And so, like, to Dan's point in the chat there real quick, it's like, one, like, how can you make them look good internally? Like, what insights, to Tom's earlier point, what insights can you give them that when they work internally, make them look good, right? Two, what are the resources that they need? Like, you know, they're going to have to talk to their CFO. And sellers, I know you want to talk to the CFO. One, a lot of y'all aren't ready. Two, you're not gonna. So how can you help that champion go to, you know, what questions the CFO is going to ask? What tools can you give your champion? What checklists? What frequently asked questions? What assets can you give them to do that, right? What are you creating to show what Tom talked about? Because also, too, y'all, you got to remember, so much of this happens in conversation and then gets forgot. So, all right, you had a conversation and they told you and you understood the cost of staying the same. Where are you putting that? Where are you packaging that up so that they can go share that same story? Because also, sellers, do you think I remember everything that we talk about on those calls? Do you think I remember everything? When I've got 5 more back-to-back meetings that day and we just had a conversation, do you think I'm going to remember all those things? So you need to recap and repackage the information that you are gathering as the deal progresses, right? So I love cheat sheets for the different orgs. I love the frequently asked questions for the different orgs. I love having testimonials and references for the different types of people that they are going to work with. I like collaborating on, here's the overarching problem we need to align everybody around, and creating those things that make it easy for my champion, right? But then also go ahead, Tom.
I'll say, especially when you have latecomer decision makers, so you got a 6-month sales cycle, and the CFO isn't there on day 1. They're coming in on month 7 to say, okay, are we going to do this or not? And they certainly don't have a memory of the past 6 months. So you've got to get those guys caught up fast. Otherwise, you're going to be here in December, suddenly, essentially starting from day 1 on the deal.
Right, because they don't know the problem, the impact of the problem, the cost of that problem, what they've tried to solve with that problem. They're just now, I get pulled in, was like, hey, KD, we need to talk price. Say, all right, well, then all I'm going to focus on is price. And if I don't like the price, then it's not going to come across, right? So I think that's a big part of it, is you need all of these assets ready to go. You need it visual, you need it audio, you need it documented so that you can share this information. Because otherwise, again, you're hoping that your champion remembers it all. Because y'all, I'll just give you a quick heads up on how a lot of like internal conversations go with your champion. Your champion walks into my digital office and goes, hey, KD, we've been looking at this tool for emails. Like, it looks pretty cool. And I go, okay, like, what is it for and how much does it cost? Well, it's going to be like $45 a head per seat, and it's just going to help us find better emails. Now we've got bigger fish to fry right now. Like, that's how a lot of the internal conversations occur. You need to be giving your champion something to share with me to warm me up to those conversations. So Andrew just said, like, executive 1-pagers are gold, right? Have something to give to that champion to give to their internal people.
Okay, do you ever do you prefer to avoid that? Is it do you like the AE in that meeting? Or like to set up time, like, your direct, let's say like your right hand, whoever that is, right, at your company, right? Mm-hmm. Like Tom's right hand. He's like, Katie, I'm gonna set up 15 minutes with, this AE from this company. Would you prefer that, knowing it's bigger investment? And I know this is very subjective to you, Katie, but I'm just curious.
So I'd prefer that after Tom's already sold me on why I should. If Tom comes to me and says, hey, I want to get 15 minutes with you so you can come take a look at this email tool, my answer is going to be no. It's like, what is this? What are we talking about?
I'm asking you to do my job. I'm asking you for an evaluation and making you do thinking that you haven't got time for.
Yeah. And then I don't want to go and talk to this AE so that AE can try to do some disco on me and da-da-da-da-da. It's like, why should I show up to this call? I told this story, I think on Monday. I got a note from call it a director level individual at a company hitting me up going, hey, KD, something. So like, what can we do to get this deal across the line this quarter? And I have no idea what they're talking about. Like literally no idea what they're talking about. And I'm like, what, they've been in touch with like a couple of my managers and a director, but nothing has been bubbled up to me yet around this. And they think I've been involved in this process. And I literally don't even know what they're talking about. Right. I don't know what deal we're trying to get across the line right now. So it's things like that people just, the sellers, you need to understand the buying process is not nearly as streamlined as you think it is in your CRM. It is disjointed. It is broken. There's a lot of back and forth. It gets brought up 5 minutes left, like in a meeting, like you really have to enable it. They're like, here, right? Make the case, make a plan to make it happen.
I brought this up because you'd said, Kevin, do you think I expect that? You expect me to remember everything that was just said? And I went, hold on, I have a slide that kind of summarizes everything that's being said. So take a screenshot, folks. You'll get this later, but this is like the screenshot. KD covered Enable the Champion, really well done on fix their pain points. Tom, something tells me you know a thing or five about mutual action plans. you want to explain like the value of that, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. So the concept is, if you got the buying process, which you love and and it's your stages, but meanwhile the sellers have their own process to go through. So do I have a problem? Is it urgent? Can I trust this guy? Is what I'm looking at now more important than the thing that I had already budgeted my money for? So they have, what do I need to do to get my CFO convinced? All these buying processes that they don't even really know because they've never bought your stuff. So the idea of a mutual action plan is, I've got to do these things. You've got to do these things. Why don't we all put them on one piece of paper? And then we can make sure that we don't go off into the wrong direction with each other. And both of us can be happy. Your problem is fixed and I hit my quota. So the idea is if you just call it out really, really straight and be honest with what you're trying to accomplish, and the ultimate goal is trying to fix this guy's problem, not just sell him something, then you can go so much faster. And the global economy is slightly more efficient because you figure out if I can help you or not. And if not, then we, part as friends, as they say, but write it down. And once the person wants it, that's only half the battle. The second part is there a reliable, low-risk change management process in place to actually make it happen? Because it's like, I want this thing so bad. I can want it all day long. But if I don't really know how I'm going to get it implemented, or the people in other parts of my company who don't really want it, how they're going to be impacted and how much of a fuss they're going to put up, then it's just not going to happen. So you've got to make a business case, but then you need to show that there's a really, really safe, low risk, done this 1,000 times kind of path to make it happen. The easiest way to do that is to write it down, make sure that all the right people are involved in it, and constantly refer back to this plan, because you're an idiot to walk into something serious without a plan.
What is it? A failure to prepare is preparing to fail?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Is that Art of War? I don't know. I read books. Kay's like, sure, I'll give you credit. Fantastic. So that kind of wraps up this segment, but we've got some more for y'all. So we covered the impact of buyer collaboration, mistakes to avoid, why it doesn't happen, strategies, and some tactics here. Now, Tom, you're going to take us through the tech side. So how you can take these ideas, these strategies, and actually put them to work using some technology.
Yeah, let me share the old screen here and see if we can't get the right thing. So,
and while Tom's pulling that up, feel free to jump over to the QA, folks. We will have a few minutes at the end, so feel free to drop any questions there. Tom, over to you.
Yeah. So I swear that I wanted collaboration before we built Align. Really, it was fixing a problem. So Clari has a mutual action plan and collaboration workspace software. And the really cool thing about this is you can make a business case, you can make that plan, and then everything is all sewn up and wrapped together and put back into Clari, which makes it a lot easier for your manager to inspect it and spot any troubles and just use the signal that's coming from these individual deals to have a lot more reliable sales process and an overall more confident view on where the deal's going to go. So these are actual numbers. So 55% increased win rate when you have a mutual action plan versus when you don't. 2.2 average bigger deal size, so the actual ACV, and a 61% faster deal cycle. That's great for closing the deal, but it actually puts more money in rep pockets as well and means they have to do less work on Sunday nights because everything's all in one place. So I'm gonna say that we have a free version of Align. So just go to clari.com/align-free, and then I'm gonna show a quick demo right here. So super, super easy stuff. You want to be able to put your business case into one place where all the people involved in the deal can see it. So I put my business case in here. Everything comes from templates. This is where I'm showing this screen with my customers saying, is this right? And they say no. And then I'm fixing it up and say, yeah, that's right. You nailed it. You want to have those attractive assets all in one place so that when the champion is telling their colleagues, you should check this out. I really like the email thing. You can go and see that why it was there and what it's doing to be helpful. And then when you're ready, and only when you're ready, then you can jump into a plan to really get into the nitty gritty of what are we doing? Do they have the confidence that we've done this before? And are we reliable? And then be able to show who the different players are on both sides. When you understand who's on the buying team, who's on the selling team, who's doing what, do you have those cross-team relationships in place? Then as a seller, you're a lot more confident that you're talking to the right people. As a buyer, you can see that it's not just some rep telling me this stuff. It's actual, there's a real army over there. And then as a manager, I can spend less of my time hearing about the good stuff and more time focused on the deals that are actually at risk so that I can come in and bring in an executive or something and save them. But if the manager doesn't have this view at a systematic level where they do their inspections, then the rep's going to get happy ears and the manager's never going to know. So putting everything all in one place makes it a lot easier to make that case, make it stick, and then do it all at scale. So please, I'm begging you, go to clari.com/align-free. It's actually free, 5 seats, fully functional. If you're a Clari customer, then it wires into your Clari. If you're not, you can plug it into your Salesforce and it will push data back and forth from Salesforce. All the things that you need to make a really strong case to your customer, show them that you're doing the right things, and figure out if you've got a problem that you can help them solve.
I always try to resist the back in my day, or I wish I had that when I was a seller, but I genuinely wish I had that when I was selling. I had a Google Doc and a basic table. It was like Devin's doing this, Katie's doing this by this date. So I love that, Tom. As you saw, there's a link. I'll let Alina drop it into the chat if it's not already. If you want to sign up for the Align Free Tier, oh, there she goes. She's already on it. And then there's a poll as well. If you want a full demo, if you say, hey, I want to talk to Tom, learn a little bit more about some of those strategies, talk to a sales rep, get something started, go ahead and punch yes.
Yeah, actually, I love talking about this stuff. If anybody has a mutual action plan that they want me to shred, I love doing that. Because you know what? The number one thing that people do wrong is the action plan ends on close, when in fact the plan should end on what I call "Thank God I Gave You Money" day, which is where They're betting on you. They're betting their career that going with you was a good idea. And so when they get that first time to value, that's when they're saying, oh man, Katie, I am so glad I bet on you. Thank God I gave you money. And then the really funny thing is that's the first and best time that you can ask for a referral. So what kills me is when the rep just bounces out and hands it over to CS. What you should do is you should stick around to the end of your plan where you're saying, thank God I gave you money. You don't need to do much in that, that post-sale motion. Check in a couple of times, hit that predicted thank God I gave you money day, and then ask them for a goddamn referral. They want to give you, and they just said you saved my day. And referrals are the best way, especially in this kind of AI generated economy where email is not very helpful anymore. Content, up the yin yang right now, so you can't really break in that way. The best way is when someone says, I'm happy to introduce you. You just saved my bacon, and I got a buddy over here who has similar bacon to be saved.
I like it. Thank you, Tom, for the line run through. We're going to move to the final part, folks, which is just the Q&A. And it looks like Rajath, I hope I'm saying that correctly, has our question. Bruce, if you want to punch it up, I'll read it aloud. Most clients are lazy to stick to plans or read documents, etc. How do we get them to be faster so that we can close the deal faster enough, or faster, we'll say? Katie, I'm going to answer for Katie, which if I follow the school, Katie, which I do, is have you confirm that they even want this thing first. But Katie, what would you say maybe after that one?
So I'll answer this one relatively directly, right? I would watch our language of the buyer in terms of lazy and switch that to overwhelmed. So if we change our language there, and I know we're salespeople, so we can talk about it, but I'm big on language, because if the language we use is we assume someone is lazy versus the language we use is we assume someone's overwhelmed, it will change what we do to try to help them. Because if we view someone as lazy, we're putting all the onus on them to get sharper, them to be faster, whatever else. Whereas if we take a second and go, okay, this person, right, if it's me, right? I'm KD. I am a person, first of all. Remember, personas are not real. People are real. I put in easily 50 to 55 hours per week in my full-time job. Easy. Plus, I have my things on the side. I spend at least 4 hours a day in meetings. I have 5 orgs that I oversee, right? And so when I'm trying to buy something, it's not because of laziness. It's because of overwhelm, right? So if you think about it from an overwhelm perspective, how can you make my job easier to buy? That's what I would like to have here. Because also, here's the second part of my answer. If the clients aren't reading them, it means they don't want them. Period. If they're not reading them, it means they don't want them. It means they don't see value in what you're sharing with them. Whereas if you sold them on what that next step is, right? So remember the sales process, y'all. You're always selling them on what's next. What is next? Sell them on that. So if what is next is reading something, sell me on it. How do you sell? Well, through proper discovery, a good pitch, connect the dots to what I want, connect it to the pain and impact, and then make the ask. Because we also, too, y'all, well, let's be honest, we send stuff and we never actually ask them and get commitment to read it. This is why I was hounding on the word accountability, by the way, earlier on. You cannot hold someone accountable to something they did not agree to do. So you have to get my agreement to do this, to hold me accountable to it. So I can say, hey, so Tom, based off what we talked about, I'm going to send you a cheat sheet to help prepare you for your conversation with legal. Can you read that? It'll take you 7 to 8 minutes. Can you read that and send me back your feedback before your call on Friday, please?
Sure thing, Katie. I'm happy to.
Okay. Well, I know you're happy to, but can you?
Yeah, I will carve out 20 minutes at the end of the day.
Okay. Is it cool if I shoot you a quick note on Friday morning if I haven't heard from you yet to make sure we're on the same page?
I think that'd be very helpful, actually.
Okay. Because that doc is going to help you understand the 4 or 5 questions I know they're going to ask you so that we can get you what you want here. That to me is part of what this needs to look like.
I think, Katie, the thing I would add to this is they may want it, but they don't want it now. So you got to ask yourself, what's more important that they're not working on this problem? And then maybe either you don't have a good event, good, credible, compelling event for them, or you didn't ask, or something else just came up. So they will want it all day long. But if they don't want it now, then they're not going to buy it now. They're going to buy it next quarter, which is what everybody on their team wants them to do. They already had a plan, and you burst in on their lives with hold the phones. You should buy this thing, and I was already at a day job. I was already doing something. So the why now part is always the very hardest, because there's never a real compelling event. Unless you're the most lucky guy in the world, right. You're nearly always trying to create one, and so you got to reinforce that why now part, and that's why they're not doing it now, because they're doing something else.
I'm going to close with what Caesar said, which is follow-up game on point. That was fun to witness. I enjoyed it. All right. Well, that ends the show for today. 12:45. This might be the first time I've hosted a webinar that ends exactly on time. So I'm going to keep it short. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I hope you learned something. There's definitely something to learn. Hope you picked it up. You'll get the recording. And Tom and KD, just want to say thanks again for tuning in, sharing your wisdom. And we'll be back at a future webinar. We got one planned for January. So stay tuned, folks. And good luck closing Q4.
The host with the most. Thanks, Devin.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, KD.